It's another wonderful opportunity to have you join us on Law and You. We'll always take our time to deepen practice about how you understand or the knowledge concerning some concepts about the law. Today, we're going to be looking at the student loan law as what we have not quite long when the president had to pass the bill into law, which is now an act, and looking at the issues regarding some areas that needs to be cleared from the cross for which we're bringing this episode. And my name is Philip Omo Gupon. Discussing this very sensitive topic with me is the former chairman, NBA Bidding Branch, and also the member of National Executive Council, and he is Barrister Eddie Asenogwan. Thanks for joining me, Eddie.
Thank you, Philip.
Now, let's take a stretch and look at the student loan law. Then, when it was a bill, it was happily passed into law by the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What do you say about this? Because some have said that this law comes with some controversies. And just a few weeks back, the ASU as a body said that this law is going to bring about a situation where, the students may pack up, from schools. What do you see? How do you look at the development or the issues that led to the creation of the student loan law?
Well, thank you, Philip. The student loan law, it's actually called the Students' Loans Access to Higher Education Act, 2023. The law says that it's an act to provide access to Nigerian students to be able to access tertiary institutions. It purports to give loan facilities to students, Nigerian students, who must be students of public institutions. And then it has conditions. The law has established a committee to administer the funds and the disbursements. The law has also provided for sources of revenue or income for the committee, and then conditions for the application and eligibility, and of course the disbursement. It has also made provisions for repayment of the loan so obtained if you are a beneficiary of the loan. Repayment by the provisions of the law is supposed to commence 2 years after your NYSC, the completion of your NYSC. You are not supposed to start repaying 2 years thereafter, and you are supposed to pay on installments 10% of your income. And if you are in the private, you are a private business owner, or you are in private business, you are expected to pay 10% of your monthly profit back to the fund. So basically, that's what the law is about. I need to also add that the loan is for payment of tuition only.
Only?
Tuition only. That's what the law provides. Of course, the issue has come about education and its funding, and of course, government is saying there is this clamor now everywhere that the cost of education is high, school fees should be increased, government can no longer continue to fund education the way they do. And then if they are thinking of that, and many, of course, Nigerians will not be able to cope, because we are still having issues with the minimum wage payable to parents, Nigerians as it were. And if you now say the public institution, which was like a haven for the middle class and low income earners, and the, well, of course, civil servants who are not stealing, so the government thought it wise to see how to cushion the very hard effect of what the economy is dishing out to Nigerians. So I think that was the idea behind providing loans to students. So you get the loan, you pay your tuition, you go through school, you do your youth service, and after school, it is presumed that maybe after 2 years of completion of your NYSC, you should be either have gotten a job or you should be in a position to begin to pay back what you have borrowed from the federal government. I think it's also important to say it's an interest-free loan.
Okay.
Interest-free loan.
Okay.
So that's the way it is. But I think people have had issues with the conditions and the criteria.
Okay, but before we get there, let's look at the aspect where some have said that looking at the constitutional provisions, that brings about tuition-free education for public tertiary institutions. Does this law not negate constitutional provisions as regards that? Because students are supposed to have tuition-free education in public universities.
No, that's not correct. That's not correct. You have a right to education. The Constitution didn't say it must be tuition-free.
Oh.
There is no such provision in our law. Under all those, you have Chapter 2, which deals with fundamental principles and objective policy of states, of the state. You have a right to education. And I think under the, what is it called now? You are supposed to have free education from primary, I think, to junior secondary. So, and I think that's still operational.
Okay, but if we look at the fees payable at federal level, looking at tertiary institutions at the federal level, we see various places where they say that, well, tuition is free. And while they also have other places or other columns where fees can be payable. But now this law becomes something that we have to look at critically, because it appears that it's like a way to bring about an increase or hike in the fees payable at the federal levels in terms of tertiary institutions. And we remember vividly where the president, through his aid, his media aid, said that the federal government is not out to increase, fees payable at the tertiary level. Now, if we just oppose this with what is obtainable in the law when it comes to the student loan law, don't you see this as an avenue to, introduce more arbitrary fees that may not augur well, looking at the educational system in Nigeria?
Where we are right now, the federal institutions, public institutions, the universities, the polytechnics, they pay tuition. They pay. The only thing,
so it's not entirely free?
It's not. It has never been entirely free. The only thing is that they are cheaper. If you have a child in Afe Babalola University, Igbinedion University, Benson Idahosa University, take for instance a student studying law in any of these private universities, the tuition is in the realm of the millions. In Uniben, a student studying law hardly pays up to 100,000. So basically, and that's why there's always...
But don't forget, all those could also be other fees, not necessarily tuition.
Yes, those other fees like you have, that's what you put together. Like for instance, I have a child in Uniben.
All right.
You pay for your accommodation, hostel if you are interested.
Yeah.
You pay your tuition basically. You go to your department, you make other payments. It's still in the realm of just a little above 100,000. For instance, University of Benin.
Okay, but do you see these students...
And you know that, like for instance, in Edo State University, Ekpoma, the state government just attempted to increase fees. And it led to a lot of uproar. I understand the government has also reviewed it down. Because we are saying, look, if it's a public institution, the whole essence of the state university was to make it affordable, for the average income earners. And if their parents are civil servants who go home with a minimum, for instance, in a door of 30,000 naira minimum wage, and then you are giving the children of such a person to pay huge amounts in a semester.
Exactly.
So where do you expect such a person to get the money?
Okay.
So that institution was to cushion, make it reasonably affordable for this class. And some people will tell you, well, they don't want their children to go there. There are those who also strive very hard to make sure their children enter into the federal universities because they were cheaper.
Okay.
And then those who could have, and that's why the law says, this particular law is saying that for you to even be qualified for the loan, you must be in a public institution.
Okay.
Because a man who takes his child to Igbinedion University, for instance, is not somebody that needs a loan of, say, 1 million to pay tuition.
Okay, but there could be several reasons apart from the aspect of having the ability financially,
yes.
financially to embark on such private institutions. There could be other reasons.
Yes,
it could be for the very fact that maybe they were not able to. Yes, as to strike. And education is paramount. You cannot take that away. It could also be for the very fact that maybe they were not able to meet the cut-off marks set by some competitive federal universities and public institutions.
Very well.
But let's look at the aspect where some have said that those who qualify, those students who qualify to access the loan should be those whose parents are not able to get an annual salary, up to 500,000 naira. So those who have below that are qualified, but those who have 500,000 annually as parents, their children do not qualify as students for the loan. Do you see? Do you see this as what will assuage the feelings of the very downtrodden? Because some again could say that even though their salaries annually could amount to maybe 500,000 and above, they still find it difficult to find a balance in sending their children to school at federal level.
I think that particular provision is like, it's unfortunate that it's there in the law. To my mind, it's like giving you something with one hand and taking it away with the other. Yes, in Nigeria today, you could, I don't even know how they intend to assess to ensure that your salary annually is less than 500,000 naira. And I do not know how many people who fall into that category in Nigeria. Because 500,000 naira annually would be like, because it said parents.
Like any maybe 40,000
so maybe like 40.
In a year we have about 480,000, so which is not up to 500,000. Which is not up to 500.
So
for such parents, their children qualify. But even those who receive 500,000, 700,000,
1 million is a problem. Yes, that's the point I'm making.
So how can we bring the provisions of the Constitution to remedy that lapse?
That provision there, to my mind, it's fortunate. It's going to disqualify a lot of persons. Because when you say 40,000 naira, and when we say parents, we are talking about father and mother.
Oh.
Parents. So if your parents, if both of them, the family, that's what the law says, or even the applicant, where this person does not have...
I think this will be applicable for in a home, for instance, where
500,000 monthly, yes, does not come into the
because if you bring in the minimum wage into the picture, and for both parents who earn that disqualifies.
Exactly, that's the point. That's the point I'm making. You find that the money is small, and when you say 500,000 naira, how do you assess what they make monthly, and how do you determine that at the end of the year their total income does not exceed 500,000?
So can we also say that that law does not capture current realities and so needs to be worked upon?
Well, if you say it does not capture current realities, I do not know what the lawmakers were thinking about. It's a 2023 law. It was just signed into law in 2023, even though it was first presented as a bill in 2016. But it was recently signed. So it will be difficult to say that it does not capture present reality. And, when passing a law, it ordinarily should go beyond the present. Because this law has not even been tested.
No, it hasn't.
They are believing that it can come into effect from this September. So, for me, I think that 500,000 naira was too small. Okay. It says that students applying for loan under this act must apply as provided under section this. Applicant income or family income must be less than 500,000 per annum. That's section 14 sub B. Family income. So if you have a father, you have a mother, and both of them in a month earns more than maybe 50,000 naira, you are disqualified. So how do you really determine this category of persons? So I think that's going to pose a challenge, but well, the law has also made provision for a committee to look into it and work out the modalities of disbursement and eligibility and qualification and all of that. So maybe they also have to do their investigation, but you see that sometimes it's only when people are in public service, the civil service, that you might be able to access their, and even when you say income, it's not dependent on your salary alone. So you can be receiving a salary of this thing, and you have some other side hustles that gives you. So for me, it's like trying to, well, maybe the intention was to look out for the poorest of the poor.
Okay, poorest of the poor,
but
basically.
It becomes a challenge.
Okay, but you see that law as, or the act as what basically must have to be worked upon.
Yeah, I think so.
It doesn't really capture, you know, a huge number of persons who are finding it difficult to, put their children, find a way to make their children go through school. This is quite a challenge. And again, there is also another issue, how you can get the loan as a student. You know, the stringent rules or having a guarantor, and what also, you know, may amount to what the guarantor should be up against in case such an applicant is not able to pay. And we find it most times where, you know, potential guarantors find it difficult to even come up to become guarantor to any applicant, because again, how do you test the ability of such a student, for instance, you know, haven't been given the loan, you know, to pay even after 2 years of finishing the youth service? Don't you think that again is another lapse that should be closed up?
Well, it's a bit, we want to see how the law works out in terms of applicability, because normally it is when you start to apply the laws that we have that you really begin to see the challenges that will throw up the kind of amendments that will be made to that law. It says that an applicant should have at least 2 guarantors who must either be a civil servant of grade level 12, a lawyer of at least 10 years post-call, a judicial officer, or a justice of the peace. Those are the persons that can guarantee the student to access that loan. And of course, the whole essence of guarantorship is the person will be liable.
If the applicant is not able to pay.
If the applicant is not able to pay. But again, that same law has also provided that failure to pay could lead to imprisonment or a payment of fine of 500,000 naira, or even both. I think we really also need to look at the issue. Is there a guarantee? Because I think the time lapse between when you are supposed to start payment is to ensure that you get a job.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Within that period.
So but again,
finishing. There are graduates that we have.
Exactly where we have to test. Because according to what you read, even in the law, you know, 2 years after the youth completion of the youth service.
Yes.
Now, what about after 2 years after completion of the youth service, the applicant is here to get a job?
So that's where we really need to look at. Are you saying that those who apply for these loans, there is an arrangement to engage them? Do you understand? Let us see if you, a student, a beneficiary, because you want me to pay you back the loan that I have taken. You should give me a job. And in fact, if you give the person a job, it guarantees the repayment, because you could even do that by way of deduction at source. But if I graduate, I finish my youth service 2 years, and I'm in my father's house, and then 1 year, 2 years, I don't, because the law says you must start to pay. Repayment starts 2 years after the completion of your NYSC. So if that is the case, how do you now pay if you do not have a job?
I think that's a misery. That's a misery that needs to be cleared.
You now want to go and bring a guarantor to come and say, come and start paying, when the state itself has failed to provide a job for somebody that has graduated and has done or completed youth service 2 years after.
So that even leaves a puzzle.
So I think maybe there should be an arrangement. The committee may be able to work out. Let us see how the federal government will also engage these persons, because strictly speaking, the government has provided funds for your education. They should absorb you so that you pay them back their money from or they can even say work for government at, because the law says you just pay back 10% of your income. So on installment. So, and if you Take, for instance, somebody who took, say, 1 million. You are expected to pay back. No, it's not even the 10% of that amount.
No, it's not.
10% of your income.
Okay.
So if you are earning 100,000 naira, you are paying just 10,000 naira. And you need to pay 10,000 naira for how many years to pay 1 million? So these are some of the areas that will need testing so that we'll be able to know how that will work. But I think the best way the government should look at it is to go a step further. You know, because we keep saying that Nigerians really do not owe anything to the state. From the day you are born, your parents pay your medicals. From there, you go to school, your parents pay.
It's harrowing.
You go to secondary, primary, your parents pay. You finish, you go for youth service. That's the only time maybe you are property of the government. As soon as you are through from youth service, you are back on your own. So you find that it's either the few privileged ones, based on who you know, are able to secure jobs. And those people who have who they know are not those that will access the loans.
Well, it's Law and You, just in case you're joining us, and it's expected that you also react in terms of your questions or mind-boggling issues that bother us in this concept, and pouch it on the number on writing on the screen. But quickly, before we wrap up, let's look at the aspect of the law that also created, you know, a position where the president can appoint a chairman of the Nigerian Education Fund. We've gone through this in our national history where fund for education was provided. Before you knew it, before they hit the ground running, the fund disappeared. So now, again, there's still this sincerity of purpose. There's still that patriotic personality, or who will the president appoint, you know, that can help salvage this issue of making sure that these funds that will be located for this purpose do not grow wings or legs or disappear.
The law has made provision for who should. The governor of the central bank is the chairman of that committee.
Of the Nigeria Education Fund?
Yes, the sources of fund. He said there shall be for the fund a special committee in this act referred to as the membership of the committee, which shall be responsible for the performance of the functions of the fund. The committee shall consist of the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria as chairman. As chairman of the Education Fund. And the funds are going to be domiciled in the Central Bank. Okay. And they shall walk through the other regular banks in terms of disbursement. The secretary of the fund, who shall be appointed by the chairman, and the minister responsible for education is a member. The chairman of National University Commission is a member. A representative of the body of vice chancellors of Nigerian universities is a member. A representative of rectors, the minister responsible for finance, the auditor general, a representative of Nigerian Labour Congress, a representative of the Nigerian Bar Association, and a representative of academic staff, ASU. Okay. So those are the members of that committee, and their tenure shall be for as long as they occupy the position that made them members. So if, for instance, you are a minister responsible for finance and you are there, or your representative is there, when you leave office as Minister of Finance, your tenure in that committee ends, and your successor in office becomes automatically a member of that committee. All right, thank you. So the chairman of, the governor of CBN is the chairman of that committee to manage the funds. Thank you so much, Barrister Eddie Senogwan, for taking our time to really muzzle this conversation on Law and You. Well, so much has been said, and we will continue to interrogate the process as regards the implementation of this policy in the framework of the law that establishes, you know, the loan for students. And do well to join us same time next week as we present a fresh episode in this direction. Goodbye.